morning everybody, Isabella from Prior Tire here, and today we are looking at 14th century. Obviously I haven't slept here because I already have my hose on, but you know, looked cosy. Right, 14th century is a century of a lot of changes in fashion and in socio-economical reality of the world really, but we are talking about fashion here mostly. Although the basic layer stayed the same, but the second part of the 14th century, and that's what we are talking about today, saw a major shift in the fit of the garments. Again, basic style, chemise and linen, nothing changes here, apart from maybe I should have a little bit lower cut. I have my wool hose with little makeshift garters, and yes, you can have garters with buckles, especially later, but to be honest, the leftover bits of your tablet weaving are working perfectly fine. So you would weave a bit for a belt or for a fillet on your head, and you have stray bits and pieces, just use them as garters, so they're often mismatched, in my case at least. I'm going to put my shoes straight away. And what really changed, instead of halfway through the century, you still have similar garments, you still have your kirtle or cotta to go as a first layer, and you still have a surcoat, which was popular, to be honest, you could even see them in the 16th century on some effigies as a ceremonial wear. But the cut and the fit changed quite a lot. So whereas in the first half of 13th century, I think I have a video on that a bit earlier on, you have a very voluminous kirtle, loose cut, loose gown, loose surcoat. Here we have much more figure hugging garments. So let us start with the kirtle, and just basic wool, one layer with lacing in front, and that lacing and that cut is absolutely essential in getting a good fit and good support for the rubbage. So I'm going to dive in and start putting on. Similar stuff is basically happening. The male garment as well is becoming much more fitted. Interesting bit, the sleeves fitted means gauze at the back for movement. And one of the other interesting bits is buttons. Right, in a second. Right, I'm in and my hair is still on. And the kirtle is in. Sleeves. So buttons were used before 13th century, and obviously there are nations that were using them for long before Europeans sort of wisen up to this kind of fastening. Vikings used horn buttons and toggles before. Rus Vikings have beautiful bead buttons, but the main Western fashion, for some reason, didn't, until 14th century that is. Sorry, but this will affect it. It's better. So a kirtle like this could close with the buttons all the way in front, or just laced up. I prefer the laced up version. It's partially laced already. So we'll just, to be honest, first I think buttons were used not only as functional items but also as ornamental ones. And we have quite a lot of horn, pewter and cast buttons at the time being found, and they revolutionised the fit as well as lacing. But you see a lot of kirtles and gowns in that era from archaeological finds, like the ones in Greenland, being used or being made out of several panels that will really fit to the body very well. So a kirtle could have 4 additional panels really streamlining the silhouette quite a lot. Additional gauze were added, so it's really the beginning of tailoring, really, a proper tailoring or proper dressmaking that would add to the silhouette and enhance the silhouette. In males' garments you have padding. Look at padded doublets of Charles de Blois, for example. That's an amazing stuff. For women, the main fit means support for the boobs. That was the best bit, and we're just arriving at that point when I will need to do the usual adjustment. Right, now the kirtle could be made in a variety of weights of wool depending on what season it was. If it was winter, at the moment theoretically we have winter here in England, but it's about 11 degrees outside, it's quite warm, so it's just a one layer kirtle, but you could have a fully lined kirtle for warmth. Adjustment. Oh, it's so good. And over there, of course, you could have a dress that was fully lined with fur, for example, not unusual for winter. In the summer or a warmer season, you just use a very fine wool. Lots of people nowadays think wool is only what your coat is made of for winter. No, it actually behaves fantastically well in the summer as well. It just all depends on the weave and how thick it is. And it twigs much better, it breathes amazingly well. It's fireproof, it's waterproof, perfect, and sustainable as well when you're over a source. Right, there I think. And although it creases a little bit, as you can see on this one, obviously people did not really have, you know, Rowentas and wash irons as we have nowadays, so some crease was inevitable. It would mostly be hanged in a dressing pole to avoid that, but not always possible when you're travelling. Right, I think it's actually a little bit too loose. We had lots of space here, but that is not a bad fit for a medieval kirtle, and it gives quite a lot of support. I mean, no bra. Oh, it's great. And no underwires and nothing sort of constricting ribcage. It's superb. Right, well, the pain in the ass is the little buttons here. Again, making sure that all of them are okay and I don't miss any. Let me see if I can give you a little bit more view. So although the kirtle is unlined, you have linen inserts for buttons and handmade buttonholes. Now the lacing obviously had one advantage over the buttons, is you can regulate it much better. So if you are having a hearty Christmas as we had, it expands, and because it's kirtle it cannot show, it won't show. Whereas buttons are sort of stuck in the same place. You can move buttons around, but it's not as flexible as normally. Okay, all the way up. And again, for all the people who say that lacing takes so much time, that took me about a couple of minutes, and I was talking in the meantime, so I couldn't really focus on what I was doing. Buttons are my nemesis, I'm okay with lacing. Pretty buttons. No, I'm getting through there. So this style would be just your everyday wandering around style, working in a household, working in the fields. You could have the kirtle lace at the side. Not sure there's a lot of evidence for back lacing, Just not particularly practical, especially as the expansion goes. You can have better, bigger bellies, especially women in certain stages of life, but not really bigger bags. So it makes more sense to do it this way. We can get a little bit more when you do a lot of plough work. You could have kirtles made in silk, lined with linen, again for very, very affluent, and not too bad for sort of autumn and spring. But that's our basic layer. Now up to that is more or less the same style. What goes after varied a lot. You could have a couple of elements, and then they could be worn either individually or all together. So what I have here today is a full gown lined in linen with short sleeves and tippets. So that's one option, which I will show a little bit more. But surcoat was still around, and you could have a sideless surcoat worn over just a kirtle. Sideless surcoat, at the moment we have the gates of hell, because you could see a trim waistline. I'll flatter myself a bit here, but you could see a woman's waistline, and that was something unusual at that time. You could also have very elaborate, almost knightly belts underneath your surcoat to show your status. Well, my status is not particularly high today, and I'm just doing my everyday clothes. So not much. And then you can have a surcoat down it, or you could have a surcoat on top of your gown as well. The gown could be with long sleeves or short sleeves, or you can cheat a little bit. Just this one. And have kirtle, surcoat, and removable tippets in silk. That would transform your gown without one layer into sort of 2-layer bits. So you can have these just as loose floaters, and you can see quite a lot of these around as ornamental bits. The long tippets are basically the remnants of the long flowing sleeves of early 13th century. That's where it's all gone. Now, as wandering around the house, I would have my little pouch. I would have my keys. I would probably have a little set of knives, or rather eating utensils. So they would go somewhere here or there, possibly somewhere here, but I'm not going to be eating at the moment, so they can stay on the table. Now you would have this pouch or smaller pouches here, because when you are wearing a gown you have pocket slits, and I forgot to make this ones yet. I'll have to add on later on. Completely escaped my mind. But basically you can have a nice pocket slits, and there are decorative items as well. I've put a couple of photos here to show how decorative little pockets are there, sometimes from with fur, sometimes from different fabrics. Usually same fabric as the lining, but not always. And it's just an easy access to a pocket, to storage. We had pockets. But at the moment I'm going to take that off. And for my day I would possibly put something on my head as well. At the moment I just have a little St. Bridget's cap, which is a little bit out of date, but it kept your hair tidy. For better days I could put a net on, a crispy net, and just put all my hair inside this one. And just put a veil on top of that and pin it, and I'm sort of done for everyday duties. For a little bit more, well, for going out or going to the town, you would put a little bit more elaborate headgear, but let's talk about this now actually. You could have a nice decorated sort of crucifer type frilled veil, which really frames the face, really, really nice. Nicely actually. And you can see quite a lot of this style is being worn in manuscripts or on the effigies. Again, I put some nice photos of it. So that's another little style. At that time you can also see quite a lot of women with basically, possibly unmarried or court women, without any head covering. You would have possibly a barbette, or, where's my wimple? You can have a wimple as well underneath, framing it, which actually I will do in a second. And then just a circlet. And you can see quite a lot of styles being exactly just that, even without the cap underneath. So it's, no, not like that, that. So that's quite unusual, because you did not have a lot of flowing, well not very flowing, sort of bare head in that time. Court fashions, yes, you can have nice flowing hair with barbettes and fillets in the early, late 13th century, beginning of 14th century. You can see that a lot of codex maners. But usually your hair would be covered in one way or another. So that was again a little bit of a change. Right, let us get the campus. Right, this one has little pewter buttons, and it's all flat lined with linen. It's quite heavy actually. I thought shooting in winter that would be perfect, but I'm boiling here now. Again, this could be made in silk and lined with silk. In and just buttons. You also have gowns that button all the way down, which obviously doesn't mean that you would have to button and unbutton them every single time, but you just leave the buttoned half and don't bother much more. You definitely get a lot of practice of making your buttonholes on 14th century stuff. As I've mentioned, the buttons here are pewter. The kirtle ones are cloth ball buttons that are made just using a piece of cloth, not even any special padding. I will put a little video at the end of it showing how it's done. You might find it informative. And again, we have a different styles for the neckline. We have squarish, we have almost off the shoulders, very daring. Quite a few variations of a heart sort of shaped decolletage. So although the basic lines were the same, the details were a little bit different. Again, it's a little bit, I thought I put weight after Christmas, but it's a little bit too big actually. But still shows a bit. So you can hide all of that in a different style. I'm not wearing a court outfit, so that's not really my interest. But let us put my wimple on. And the wimple is basically just a piece of cloth that I'm going to secure to my cap with a brass pin. That's where the cap is really, really handy. And it can be tucked in or left flowing. It's up to whatever you like, really. And again, I have a veil or a hood if the weather is a little bit inclement, which is a little bit today. This is an open hood that at some point in the future will have buttons in front. And that's quite cute, really. Yeah, I don't need to make buttons. The same buttons I think as at a kirtle will look very, very nice. And another tippet here. I think there's some evidence showing that people could have some little pouches here. You would knot that in and keep some money over there. We'll make a decent weapon as well. But that's a really cosy style and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to go outside and see if I can do some horse riding in it. The pattern and instructions for both of these are going to be in the equestrian dressmaker, because guess what, medieval women wore no more clothes for riding. There were no riding habits, so you just wear your clothes as you wear really. Maybe a little bit more voluminous skirts and more durable materials, wool, duh. So that book is going to be out in summer, hopefully summer 23, so in a few months on. I better get my act going. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll put some photos on, and if you have enjoyed it, buy me a cup of coffee. Decaf, please. Menopause doesn't really work very well with caffeinated drinks. Ta-da! I'm an effigy. Thank you.